Hey guys, what's up Mustangs? Boo Guy X1 back to Forza Motorsport 7 with, well, my terrible driving and a challenge. Now, earlier this month, which is the month of March, McLaren announced that they had sold out of a new vehicle, codenamed the BT43, which is supposed to be basically the modern F1, going 243 miles an hour estimated top speed, which means it'll probably be faster because the only thing they've announced of the vehicle is a seating arrangement, a look, and the top speed. And that's it, and it already sold out. So that got me thinking, how fast can you go with the McLaren's power of 627 horsepower? To this day, it is the fastest naturally aspirated vehicle, with 241 miles an hour back in the 1990s, and it took 1,000 horsepower from a Bugatti Veyron to go and beat it. So how fast could you go with just 627 horsepower? And I didn't really have any rules. I was allowed to do four-wheel drive swaps. My goal is to not do any, so I think only one car ended up having a four-wheel drive swap. Just because it was way too uncontrollable. Yeah, we'll get to that later. But, yeah, just the only rule is 627 horsepower, everything else is maxed out. And I ran the opposite way down to Le Mans Street. Now, the slowest vehicle is this Dodge Charger Daytona, because I wanted a classic American muscle car. And I thought the Daytona would be a pretty good start. It has, well, the most aerodynamic front end. It's relatively sturdy at high speeds. In real life, it goes 206 miles an hour. And I took the giant wheel to get less drag. And despite having a naturally aspirated 627 horsepower V8, it only managed 209 miles an hour, which, I mean, is pretty impressive for a 1960s car. But we're a fair way off the McLaren. And it was probably one of the most stable vehicles I had. Wasn't quite fast enough, unfortunately. But, yeah, this would be the only... I realized at this point that the classic American cars didn't really work, because this is the most aerodynamic of the classic American vehicles. And you can see I just got a 209 by taking that nice, steep downhill line, but I did script the wall a little bit, did that a few times. But, yeah, the Daytona did just about crack 209 miles an hour. Now I take a considerable jump forwards in speed with the Lancia Stratos 222 miles an hour, away from our target to the McLaren F1 set of 233. So, we are getting close. We're getting a considerable amount closer. We're only 11 miles an hour away. But this is relatively aerodynamic. It is quite scary around the corner. I had a lift there. One of the few vehicles actually had a lift because the suspension, as you saw in the time where I built this for the Nuremberg times, is very soft. So it's very wobbly. Once you get up to speed, it's fine because you're going in a straight line, and it deals with the bumps very well. But around the corners, it is quite terrifying. And 222 miles an hour in a Lancia Stratos is terrifying at the best of times, much less when you, well, are struggling to maintain control. I mean, truth be told, it wasn't that bad, but yeah, 222 miles an hour in a Lancia Stratos, you can see here, makes it do interesting things on the suspension. Now, just 2 miles an hour further up the road is, well, quite a different vehicle, the 1966 GT40 Mark II. I was expecting this to do a lot better. It's incredibly aerodynamic. It has exactly 627 horsepower. It's designed for Le Mans. I thought it would do a lot better. I mean, 224 miles an hour isn't terrible. However, it's not exactly what I would call stellar, all things considered. And yeah, I was really hoping this vehicle would crack like 230 something, but it just was not to be. I thought, yeah, most Le Mans cars do very well with DVR1. I can imagine the Jaguar D-Type would be pretty good if I had the money to afford it. So, yeah, I was expecting the GT40 to be a lot better, but 224 miles an hour is where the GT40 was placed at. Now, I didn't want to have exclusively classic race cars and old vehicles. So I picked the Acura NSX. Or Honda NSX, I guess. Because why not? And it's... it looks pretty aerodynamic. I couldn't take the wing off, unfortunately. The little, like, cutout wing. So that was a little bit unfortunate. It didn't increase the drag slightly, but... it still managed to go 227 miles an hour, which is pretty good. I wasn't gonna say surprised, but it did a pretty darn good job. Pop-up headlights, always helpful in speedrunning, just a scientific fact. And, yeah, it was quite a good vehicle for this. Most modern cars don't have enough PI, or don't have enough power, or they're not aerodynamic enough because they're like for comfort or track vehicles, but no, the Acura NSX doing 227 miles an hour certainly is very impressive. Now, another modern vehicle, this one a convertible Fiat 124 Abarth, going 1 mile an hour faster. Again, these vehicles do have similar to identical power figures, so you would expect the speeds to be pretty darn similar. And yeah, this is 228 miles an hour, so we are getting closer. We are just 5 miles an hour away from the 233 mile an hour benchmark. And this was a bit of a surprise, because you wouldn't expect it to be super fast. It's not ultra aerodynamic, it's not like super sleek, it doesn't have crazy amounts of like aero parts, and have no drag. It's just really, really stupidly fast. And yeah, 228 miles an hour with a big old slider on the corner plate, keep it out of the wall. Yeah, 228 miles an hour in a Fiat convertible may be quite scary, as I slightly upright myself. We go from a modern two-door convertible to an open-wheeled, open-cockpit 1930s Grand Prix car. The Mercedes W154 did another 1 mile an hour further. 229 miles an hour was achieved by the Mercedes. And this is arguably the most impressive, because it only has 586 horsepower, which is a fair bit down on the requirement. So this is way underpowered and achieved much higher speeds than most vehicles. It did a fantastic job, this Mercedes. And if you could put the 627 horsepower in this vehicle, if you could engine swap it, because you're not allowed to engine swap this vehicle. So if you could engine swap this and get the actual power figures, you would be at the top of the power band. I would imagine 240 estimate, easily. So yeah, the Mercedes is very fast for its power figures, but not quite fast enough at 229 miles an hour. Now, this is a bit of a surprise to me, the 1990 Mazda RX-7 Twerk Stallion drift car. This was, surprisingly, the first vehicle to go faster than the McLaren F1. Yeah, that vehicle. Yeah, I mean, it's aerodynamic and it's a race car from standard, so it's pretty darn good. But, yeah, I wasn't really expecting the RX-7 drift car to, well, beat the McLaren F1 in terms of straight line speed. 236 miles an hour were achieved by this vehicle, and it's not much faster, I will be honest. But, you know, it is faster, because you don't have an endless straight like the McLaren did when they were doing their test runs. We have, well, a very limited straight, about 2 miles. I say very limited. But, yeah, I did clip the wall a little bit, but 236 miles an hour is the fastest the Twerk Stallion achieved. Now, a vehicle I expected to do a lot better is the Aston Martin DBR1. A 1950s Le Mans car goes, well, 190 from standard. And this isn't standard. This has 627 horsepower. It managed to get to the exact number of horsepower that you are allowed to have using our regulations. And it managed to get an impressive, but not quite as impressive as I would think, 241 miles an hour. We are now 8 miles an hour faster than the McLaren F1. But yeah, I thought this would do a lot better. I mean, it is a classic Le Mans car. It's designed for this track, so it was very plain. It was very nice to drive. It was similar to the GT40, but a lot faster. Mainly because it has no aerodynamics on it at all, except for the ones making you go super fast in a straight line. So, yeah, it's a very nice vehicle to drive. And as you can see, it is smoking the tires a bit around the corner. But 241 was achieved before I had to get on the brakes. Now, a vehicle I expected to do a lot better is the Aston Martin DBR1. A 1950s Le Mans car goes, well, 190 from standard. And this isn't standard. This has 627 horsepower. It managed to get to the exact number of horsepower that you are allowed to have using our regulations. And it managed to get an impressive, but not quite as impressive as I would think, 241 miles an hour. We are now 8 miles an hour faster than the McLaren F1. But yeah, I thought this would do a lot better. I mean, it is a classic Le Mans car. It's designed for this track, so it was very plain. It was very nice to drive. It was similar to the GT40, but a lot faster. Mainly because it has no aerodynamics on it at all, except for the ones making you go super fast in a straight line. So, yeah, it's a very nice vehicle to drive. And as you can see, it is smoking the tires a bit around the corner. But 241 was achieved before I had to get on the brakes. Now, this little death machine is the Lotus 11, weighing in at less than 1,200 pounds. And having 195 as the maximum tire size. This 627 horsepower Le Mans car is very, very fast and very, very terrifying. Now, why is it 1,200 pounds? Because it is physically uncontrollable with a rear-wheel drive setup. I tried. This is the one vehicle I had this four-wheel drive swap. It just wasn't controllable. I couldn't even get it above 180 miles an hour. It just spun the wheels. And you will very quickly see that even with four-wheel drive, there is quite a bigger problem than wheel spin. Because, lightweight, I originally ran this vehicle without aero parts, so it has no aerodynamics at all. And you already see the smoke billowing off of it. And then it gets really scary and wants to become a plane. Right about now. And there we go, we're in the air. And then we're really in the air. I mean, ready? Look at it! Look at it! It's just flying! That's not how cars work. I just love that shot. Just the car flying in the air perfectly flat. And then it just lands and spins out of control into a wall. But, yeah. It is terrifying. It did get a run. It did complete a run. Without a crash. On the actual run that I did. However, it's also very bad under brakes. Because it's going so fast. So, yeah, I might have had to chuck it in the dirt to make sure. And even then, it's still at the wall. So, yeah, the Lotus 11 certainly lives up to its name of being an absolute monster. It's been a monster in every single game it's ever been in the Forza franchise. And this game is no exception. And you can see here on its actual run, it's still terrifying. And it still likes to become an airplane. It's less extreme. The bumps are less extreme going down this end. However, it still wasn't gonna work. For the simple matter of, yes, you are going very fast. However, one, it's not clean. You keep hitting walls. Two, you're not going to maximum speed because, well, you're flying and jumping around and skidding all over the place doesn't help you reach your top speed. So, yeah, the Lotus was a struggle, we'll say, to drive. Yeah. However, the victor is the Porsche 550 Spider, and the name is a very good omen as to how fast this car wins, because it has 624 horsepower from a turbocharged, I think it was a flat 6, and it did 250 miles an hour. That is fast, and this is rear-wheel drive. This is amazingly got to full throttle in 6th gear, which is, I was very impressed by. Now, there is a bump that will launch into the air and spin out, which is why you saw the speed drop a bit, because I had to let off so it didn't crash. But this is the limit of running without aero and with rear-wheel drive. This is the bare minimum you can run. Because you see, we're just spinning the wheels. But we are still going 248, 249 for the 550 before just hitting 250 before I hit the wall. It was at 250 for about half a second, but it was at 250 before I spin out and park it. Yeah, Porsche is fast. The Porsche is very fast. So, yeah, the Porsche 550 Spider doesn't look like a speedrunner, but it is mind-bogglingly fast. All you need. This had a 1.3-liter rotary in it, because why not? Yeah, I did a check just to make sure the engine was right, and it is a rotary instead of a V6. F6. I do apologize. It's not an F6. It's a rotary. But yeah, if you want to go as fast as a Bugatti Veyron, all you need is a Porsche 550 Spider with a rotary in it. It's crazy. And maxed out this can probably do 270, almost. I have no idea how fast this can go, but it would be murderously fast. So, yeah. It's quite impressive, this car. Also, the doors. The doors open up at like a vertical angle, at like a 45-degree angle. It's very cool. But, yeah, it doesn't... That would be terrifying, I would imagine. I can imagine that would be quite terrifying driving in a convertible from this era. It's like 1963? 1953? Yeah, 1953. A car from 1950, a convertible from 1953 going 250 miles an hour, powered by a rotary, down Le Mans, where you have to lift because the bumps will launch it into the air. Yeah. It's a monster. But it's a very fast monster if you can control it. But that is it for this episode of Forza Motorsports. I'll be back with more.